In a world that never stops talking, where the noise of self-promotion and the clamor for attention seem to drown out all else, there's a secret language being spoken. It's a language that transcends words, a subtle yet potent form of communication that speaks directly to the soul. This, my friends, is the language of silent attraction. Imagine walking into a room and feeling an immediate magnetic pull towards someone. It's not because they're the loudest or the most flashy, but because there's something about their very presence that captivates you. They exude a quiet confidence, an authenticity that draws you in and makes you want to learn more. In this video, we'll explore 6 unconventional Stoic habits that hold the key to unlocking your inner charisma and building a life of deep, meaningful connection. Let's get started on this exciting journey together. Habit 1. Authenticity. Picture this. You're at a networking event, surrounded by a sea of faces, each one trying to make an impression. You shake hands, exchange business cards, and engage in the usual small talk. But then, someone catches your eye. They're not the loudest or the most gregarious person in the room, but there's something about them that draws you in. As you talk with them, you realize what it is. They're authentic. They're not trying to be someone they're not, or to impress you with a carefully crafted persona. They're simply being themselves, and it's magnetic. This, my friends, is the power of authenticity. In a world where so many people are trying to fit in, to conform to society's expectations, those who have the courage to be true to themselves stand out like beacons in the night. And this is where our first Stoic habit comes in. The Stoics believed that authenticity was the foundation of a life well lived. They understood that true happiness and fulfillment come not from external validation or material success, but from living in alignment with one's values and purpose. As Seneca put it, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable. But what does it mean to be authentic in practice? It starts with self-awareness, taking the time to understand your own values, beliefs, and desires. It means having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's unpopular or uncomfortable. It means being honest with yourself and others, even when the truth is difficult to face. Think about someone in your own life who embodies authenticity. Maybe it's a friend who always seems comfortable in their own skin, who speaks their mind even when it's not what others want to hear. Or maybe it's a public figure who stands up for their convictions, even in the face of criticism or backlash. These people have a magnetic quality that draws others to them, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. So, how can you cultivate authenticity in your own life? Start by taking some time for self-reflection. What are your core values? What kind of person do you want to be? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Once you have a clearer sense of who you are and what you stand for, start making choices that align with those values. Speak up when something doesn't feel right, even if it's scary. Be honest with yourself and others about your strengths and weaknesses. Embrace your quirks and imperfections. They're what make you uniquely you. Of course, being authentic isn't always easy. It can be tempting to compromise your values for the sake of fitting in or avoiding conflict. But as the Stoics remind us, the rewards of living authentically are immeasurable. When you're true to yourself, you build deeper, more meaningful relationships. You find a sense of purpose and fulfillment that can't be shaken by external circumstances. And you become a beacon of inspiration for others who are struggling to find their own path. As we close out this section on authenticity, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take one step today towards living more authentically. It could be as simple as speaking up when you disagree with someone or sharing a vulnerability with a trusted friend. Remember, The journey towards authenticity is a lifelong one, but every step you take brings you closer to the magnetic, fulfilling life you deserve. And speaking of magnetic qualities, our next Stoic habit is all about the power of presence. Have you ever been around someone who seems to command attention without even trying? Who makes you feel like you're the only person in the room? In the next section, we'll explore how cultivating presence can transform your interactions and relationships and make you irresistibly attractive in the process. Get ready to learn the secrets of this game-changing habit. Habit 2. Presence. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone who seemed physically present but mentally miles away? Their eyes dart around the room, their responses are delayed and half-hearted, and you can practically see their mind wandering to their to-do list or latest Instagram post. Now contrast that with someone who is fully engaged in the moment, who listens attentively, asks thoughtful questions, and makes you feel like the most important person in the world. Which one would you rather be around? This is the essence of our second Stoic habit, presence. The ability to be fully engaged in the here and now without getting caught up in distractions or worries about the future. When you cultivate presence, you become a magnet for deep, meaningful connections, both in your personal relationships and in your professional life. The Stoics understood the power of presence long before modern psychology caught on. They believed that true happiness and fulfillment come from embracing the present moment, rather than dwelling on the past or anxiously anticipating the future. As Marcus Aurelius put it, remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. So, how can you develop the habit of presence in your own life? Start by practicing mindfulness, the act of bringing your full attention to the present moment without judgment. This could mean taking a few deep breaths before entering a conversation, savoring your morning coffee instead of gulping it down, or simply noticing the sensation of your feet on the ground as you walk. Another key aspect of presence is active listening. When you're fully engaged in a conversation, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're absorbing every word, every nuance, every emotion. You're asking questions to deepen your understanding, reflecting back what you've heard to show that you're truly listening. And in doing so, you create a sense of connection and trust that is truly magnetic. But presence isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. When you're authentically engaged in the moment, you exude a sense of calm, confidence, and ease that draws others to you, like moths to a flame. Think of someone in your life who embodies this quality, a friend who always seems fully present and engaged, a mentor who gives you their undivided attention, a partner who makes you feel like the center of their universe. These people have a rare and valuable gift, the gift of presence. Of course, cultivating presence isn't always easy in our fast-paced, distraction-filled world. It's all too tempting to get caught up in the noise and chatter of everyday life, the endless notifications, the urgent emails, the social media rabbit holes. But as the Stoics remind us, true happiness and fulfillment come from focusing on what's truly important, the people and experiences that bring us joy and meaning. So, as we close out this section on presence, I want to challenge you to try a little experiment. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, whether it's with a friend, a colleague, or a stranger, commit to being fully present. Put away your phone, quiet your mind, and give the other person your undivided attention. Notice how it feels to be truly engaged in the moment, and notice how the other person responds to your presence. And speaking of responses, our next Stoic habit is all about the power of empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. In a world that often feels disconnected and divided, Empathy is a rare and valuable gift. In the next section, we'll explore how cultivating empathy can transform your relationships, your career, and your life as a whole. Get ready to unlock the secrets of this transformative habit. Habit 3. Empathy. Imagine this scenario. You're having a tough day. Maybe you got passed over for a promotion at work, or maybe you had a fight with your partner. You confide in a friend, hoping for some support and understanding. But instead of empathy, you're met with judgment and criticism. You should have worked harder, they say, or it's your own fault for being so sensitive. How would that make you feel? Now, imagine the same scenario, but with a different response. Your friend listens patiently, validates your feelings, and offers words of support and encouragement. That must be really tough, they say. I'm here for you. How would that change your experience? This, my friends, is the power of empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. When we practice empathy, we create a sense of connection and trust that is truly magnetic. We make others feel seen, heard, and valued, and in doing so, we build deeper, more meaningful relationships. The Stoics understood the importance of empathy long before the term was coined. They believed in the concept of cosmopolitanism, the idea that all humans are part of a single, global community, and that we have a duty to treat each other with kindness and respect. As Marcus Aurelius put it, we should consider that we are all related to each other and that we share a common nature. But empathy isn't just a nice to have, it's a crucial skill in today's interconnected world. Whether you're a leader, a team member, a friend, or a partner, the ability to understand and relate to others is essential for building strong, healthy relationships. And in a world that often feels divided and polarized, empathy is more important than ever. So how can you cultivate empathy in your own life? Start by practicing active listening, the same skill we discussed in the previous section on presence. When someone is sharing their thoughts or feelings with you, give them your full attention. Don't interrupt, don't judge, and don't try to fix their problems. Simply listen, reflect back what you've heard, and validate their experience. Another key aspect of empathy is perspective taking, the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. This means setting aside your own biases and assumptions and truly trying to understand where the other person is coming from. It means asking questions, seeking to understand their context and experiences, and recognizing that their perspective may be different from your own. But empathy isn't just about understanding others. It's about taking action to support and care for them. This could mean offering a listening ear when someone is struggling, advocating for a colleague who is being treated unfairly, or simply being there for a friend in need. When we show up for others with empathy and compassion, we create a ripple effect of kindness and connection that can transform entire communities. Of course, practicing empathy isn't always easy. It can be challenging to set aside our own opinions and biases, especially when we disagree with someone else's perspective. It can be uncomfortable to sit with someone else's pain or struggles without trying to fix or minimize their experience. But as the Stoics remind us, discomfort is often a sign that we're growing and learning. And the rewards of practicing empathy are immeasurable. When we approach others with empathy and compassion, we build deeper, more meaningful relationships. We create a sense of belonging and connection that is essential for our well-being and happiness, and we become a force for good in the world, spreading kindness and understanding wherever we go. As we move into the next section on calm confidence, I invite you to reflect on how you can bring more empathy into your own life. Who in your life could benefit from your compassion and understanding? How can you practice perspective taking even when it's difficult? And how can you show up for others with empathy and care, creating a ripple effect of connection and kindness? Remember, Empathy is a skill that can be learned and cultivated over time. With practice and intention, we can all become more empathetic, compassionate, and magnetic individuals. And in doing so, we can create a world that is a little bit kinder, a little bit more connected, and a whole lot more beautiful. Habit 4. Calm confidence. Picture this. You're about to give a big presentation at work. Your palms are sweaty, your heart is racing, and your mind is filled with worst-case scenarios. What if you forget what you're going to say? What if you stumble over your words? What if everyone in the room thinks you're a fraud? Now, imagine approaching that same situation with a sense of calm confidence. You've prepared thoroughly, you know your material inside and out, and you trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. You take a few deep breaths, ground yourself in the present moment, and step onto the stage with a sense of ease and self-assurance. This, my friends, is the power of calm confidence, the ability to face challenges and uncertainties with a sense of poise, resilience, and self-trust. When we cultivate calm confidence, we become a grounding force in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable. We inspire others with our presence, our authenticity, and our unwavering belief in ourselves and our abilities. The Stoics understood the importance of calm confidence long before the self-help gurus of today. They believed that true strength and resilience come not from external circumstances, but from our inner sense of self and our ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and wisdom. As Epictetus put it, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." So how can you cultivate calm confidence in your own life? Start by practicing self-awareness, taking the time to understand your own thoughts, feelings, and reactions to different situations. Notice when you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or unsure of yourself, and try to identify the underlying beliefs or thought patterns that may be contributing to those feelings. Next, focus on developing a growth mindset, the belief that you can learn, grow, and improve over time. Instead of seeing challenges as threats or obstacles, try to approach them as opportunities for growth and learning. Embrace failure as a natural part of the learning process and use setbacks as a chance to reflect, adjust, and try again. Another key aspect of calm confidence is self-compassion, the ability to treat yourself with kindness, understanding, and forgiveness. When you make a mistake or fall short of your own expectations, don't beat yourself up or engage in negative self-talk. Instead, speak to yourself with the same compassion and encouragement you would offer a good friend. But calm confidence isn't just about what's going on inside your own head. It's also about how you show up in the world. When you exude calm confidence, you communicate to others that you are capable, trustworthy, and self-assured. You inspire confidence in those around you, and you create a sense of safety and stability that is deeply attractive. Think of someone in your life who embodies calm confidence, a mentor, a friend, a public figure you admire. Notice how they carry themselves, how they speak and listen, how they respond to challenges and setbacks. What can you learn from their example? Of course, cultivating calm confidence isn't always easy, especially in a world that often feels uncertain and unpredictable. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. But as the Stoics remind us, discomfort is often a sign that we're growing and learning, and the rewards of cultivating calm confidence are immeasurable. When you approach life with a sense of self-assurance and resilience, you become a beacon of hope and inspiration for others. You create a sense of trust and stability that is essential for building strong, healthy relationships. And you develop the inner strength and wisdom to navigate whatever challenges come your way. As we move into the next section on purposeful action, I encourage you to reflect on how you can bring more calm confidence into your own life. What situations or challenges tend to trigger feelings of anxiety or self-doubt? How can you practice self-awareness, self-compassion, and a growth mindset in those moments? And how can you show up in the world with a sense of poise, authenticity, and self-assurance? Remember, calm confidence is a quality that can be cultivated over time with practice and intention. By embracing the wisdom of the Stoics and committing to your own personal growth and development, you can become a more grounded, resilient, and magnetic individual, one who inspires others with your presence and your unwavering belief in yourself and your abilities. Habit 5. Purposeful action. Have you ever watched someone who is completely absorbed in their work, utterly focused and engaged in the task at hand? They seem to have a sense of clarity, direction, and passion that is both rare and compelling. They're not just going through the motions, they're living with purpose, and it shows. This, my friends, is the essence of our 5th Stoic habit. Purposeful action. The ability to align your actions with your values and goals, to live with intention and meaning, and to make a positive impact on the world around you. When you cultivate purposeful action, you become a force for good in the world, a beacon of inspiration and change that draws others to you like a magnet. The Stoics understood the power of purposeful action long before the rise of modern self-help and personal development. They believed that each of us has a unique role to play in the world, a specific set of talents and abilities that we are called to use in service of something greater than ourselves. As Marcus Aurelius put it, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm? But purposeful action isn't just about grand, world-changing goals. It's about the small, everyday choices we make to live in alignment with our values and priorities. It's about choosing integrity over expedience, courage over comfort, and service over self-interest. It's about being intentional with our time, our energy, and our attention, and using them in ways that make a positive difference in the world. So, how can you cultivate purposeful action in your own life? Start by getting clear on your values and priorities. What matters most to you? What kind of person do you want to be? What impact do you want to have on the world? Take some time to reflect on these questions and write down your answers. Next, look for ways to align your actions with your values and goals. This could mean volunteering for a cause you care about, pursuing a career that aligns with your passions and strengths, or simply making more intentional choices about how you spend your time and energy. Remember, small actions can add up to big impact over time. Another key aspect of purposeful action is focus and discipline. When you're working towards a meaningful goal, it's easy to get sidetracked or discouraged by obstacles and setbacks. But as the Stoics remind us, true success and fulfillment come from staying the course, even when the path is difficult. This means developing the self-discipline to stay focused on what matters most, even when distractions or temptations arise. But purposeful action isn't just about what you do, it's about who you are. When you live with intention and meaning, you exude a sense of clarity, passion, and authenticity that is deeply attractive to others. You become a role model and a source of inspiration for those around you, showing them what it means to live a life of purpose and impact. Think of someone in your life who embodies purposeful action. A friend who is passionate about their work, a mentor who uses their talents to make a difference in the world, a public figure who stands up for what they believe in. What can you learn from their example? Of course, living with purpose isn't always easy. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. It means being honest with yourself about what truly matters to you and being willing to make difficult choices in service of your values and goals. But as the Stoics remind us, the rewards of a purposeful life are immeasurable. When you align your actions with your values and goals, you create a sense of meaning and fulfillment that can weather any storm. You become a force for good in the world, making a positive impact on the lives of others and leaving a legacy that will endure long after you're gone. And you inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of positive change that can transform entire communities and even the world itself. As we move into the final section on reflective listening, I invite you to consider how you can bring more purposeful action into your own life. What values and goals are most important to you? How can you align your actions with those priorities, even in small ways? And how can you inspire others with your sense of purpose, passion, and authenticity? Remember, living with purpose is a lifelong journey, one that requires ongoing reflection, growth, and commitment. But by embracing the wisdom of the Stoics and committing to your own personal and professional development, you can create a life that is rich in meaning, impact, and joy, a life that truly matters, both to yourself and to the world around you. Habit 6. Reflective listening. Think back to a time when you felt truly heard and understood by another person. Maybe it was a heart-to-heart conversation with a close friend, or a meaningful exchange with a mentor or teacher. Whatever the context, chances are that the other person was practicing a powerful skill: reflective listening. Reflective listening is the art of fully attending to another person's words, thoughts, and feelings, not just hearing them, but truly seeking to understand and empathize with their perspective. When we practice reflective listening, we create a space of trust, connection, and mutual understanding that is deeply nourishing for both parties involved. The Stoics understood the power of reflective listening long before the rise of modern psychology and communication theory. They believed that true wisdom and understanding come not from talking, but from listening, from opening ourselves up to the perspectives and experiences of others and seeking to learn from them. As Epictetus put it, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. But reflective listening is more than just staying quiet and nodding along. It's an active process that requires focus, empathy, and a genuine desire to understand the other. Reflective listening is more than just staying quiet and nodding along. It's an active process that requires focus, empathy, and a genuine desire to understand the other person's perspective. It means setting aside your own biases and assumptions and fully immersing yourself in the other person's world. So, how can you cultivate reflective listening in your own life? Start by practicing presence, giving the other person your full, undivided attention. Put away your phone, minimize distractions, and focus on the person in front of you. Notice their body language, their tone of voice, and the emotions behind their words. Next, practice active listening, the art of fully engaging with the other person's message. This means asking clarifying questions, paraphrasing what you've heard to ensure understanding, and reflecting back the emotions and underlying meanings behind their words. For example, you might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by the challenges at work. Is that accurate?" Or, "What I'm hearing is that you're excited about this new opportunity, but also a little nervous about the unknown. Is that right?" Another key aspect of reflective listening is empathy, the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes and see things from their perspective. This means setting aside your own opinions and judgments and striving to understand where the other person is coming from. It means acknowledging their feelings and experiences as valid and real, even if they differ from your own. But reflective listening isn't just about what you say, it's about who you are. When you listen with presence, empathy, and understanding, you create a sense of safety and trust that allows the other person to open up and share more deeply. You become a source of support and guidance, a sounding board for their ideas and concerns, and a partner in their personal and professional growth. Of course, cultivating reflective listening takes practice and patience. It's not always easy to set aside our own thoughts and opinions or to fully attune to another person's experience. But as the Stoics remind us, the rewards of deep, authentic connection are well worth the effort. When we listen reflectively, we not only build stronger, more meaningful relationships, we also expand our own understanding of the world and the people in it. We learn new perspectives, gain new insights, and develop a richer, more nuanced view of reality. And we become better communicators, leaders, and human beings in the process. So, as we close out this exploration of the 6 unconventional Stoic habits of silent attraction, I invite you to reflect on how you can bring more reflective listening into your own life. Who in your life could benefit from your full, undivided attention? How can you practice empathy and understanding, even in challenging conversations? And how can you use reflective listening to build deeper, more authentic connections with the people around you? Remember, cultivating these habits is a lifelong journey, one that requires ongoing practice, reflection, and growth. But by embracing the wisdom of the Stoics and committing to your own personal and interpersonal development, you can become a more magnetic, authentic, and purposeful individual. One who attracts others not through words or appearances, but through the silent power of your presence, your character, and your unwavering commitment to living a life of meaning and impact. As we close out this video, I want to leave you with a final thought from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. By cultivating these 6 habits of silent attraction, authenticity, presence, empathy, calm confidence, purposeful action, and reflective listening, you tap into a deep well of inner strength and resilience that can weather any storm. You become a beacon of hope, inspiration, and positive change in a world that sorely needs it. So go forth, my friends, and embrace the power of silent attraction. Live with intention, listen with empathy, and lead with authenticity. And know that, in doing so, you are not only transforming your own life for the better, you are also helping to create a world that is a little bit kinder, a little bit wiser, and a whole lot more beautiful. Thank you for joining me on this journey of growth and discovery. Until next time, keep shining your light and trust in the magnetic power of your own silent attraction.